Gibson, what a class act, and he could be a coach. I think a pitching coach. He's that knowledgeable, and he's got innate leadership skills too. Just a great guy that pitchers just flock to. And Randy, what you were saying there at the end, he didn't get to pitch in a World Series. He was an all-star one time, but how many guys who, when they get drafted in the major leagues, have 13 seasons in the show, and let me make sure I got this right, and pitch in, 328 starts. I mean, there's not a huge, massive list of people that have lasted that long and pitched that long. So he had a heck of a career. He really did. And what a class act that he is.
Yeah. And he really provided what the Cardinals wanted from him last year. And essentially so did Lynn. But the problem is you can't have too many of those guys because you already had Miklasz. You can't have too many of those fourth or fifth guys that give you innings but have an earned run average approaching 5.
Yeah, and then, Lynn, of course, was dealing with the knee problems and, was not as much of a factor after the All-Star break. It's not his fault. But I still think, their starting pitching overall was solid enough to be a playoff team, but they, as we all know, their offense was just horrible. So, but I actually give John Mozeliak, and I know, I rip Mo a lot. I know nobody wants to hear any praise at any time, but I actually thought his thinking before last season to go sign 3 free agents, all veterans, all have been around, all respected in the game. I actually thought it was a really good strategy, but they didn't hit enough.
And I agree with that, but they needed to go out and get a guy like Dylan Cease last year. And there was one move yet to make. They would have been really good last year and they could have given more to the White Sox than the Padres did. They knew what they had, but they needed a number 1. They needed somebody to join Sonny Gray at the top of the rotation. If they would have made a move like that, I think, Mo would have gotten all kinds of flowers because they would have been a really good team.
No, I agree. Yeah, I do. I agree in theory because they were really good moves before the season, but I think they needed that one more pop.
Yeah.
And, Fetty at the time looked like a reasonably good bet, but he was, I'm not going to say it was a mirage, but it was kind of a mirage what he did for the White Sox.
And Bernie, I was just going to ask about him because I didn't realize this, but here's what I got for you. In the 19 games that Sonny Gray has started, the Cardinals are 15-4. In the 18 that Liberatore has started, 9-9. In the 18 that Michaelis has started, 9-9. In the 18 that Palante has started, 9-9. And then in the 19 that Eric Fetty has started, the Cardinals are 5-14.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked so much about replacing Eric Fetty with Michael McGreevy. You need another guy. Just imagine if he were 9-9 in his starts rather than if the team was 9-9 in his starts rather than 5-14, how much better off this team would be.
Yeah, I mean, I did something about this too. Just a note in one of the columns on STL Central here in the last couple of days. If you take away Sonny Gray, the team's record with Sonny Gray this season when he starts, the Cardinals are 6 or 7 games under 500 when anybody else starts.
42.
Yeah, and the other thing about Fetty, because look, he was pretty good for the Cardinals in September. He was not very good in August because, as you have pointed out and others have pointed out, when he showed up after the trade, he told the Marmol and Dusty Blake, he told him he was gassed. Mm-hmm. He didn't have much left in the tank, and he was pretty bad in August. Well, I always believe, this is just my personal preference. I look at individual pitcher win-loss records, okay, but I also think they can be very misleading. But I think, although it's imperfect, what I prefer to look at is something you just noted, a team's record when a pitcher starts.
Mm-hmm.
Since Fetty joined the Cardinals are 8-21 when he starts. I mean, again, I can't say that's all his fault, but 8-21, that tells you a lot about whether he helps you win or he does the opposite, right?
Well, and we can just go in this particular year, apples to apples. 5-14 for Fetty, 15-4 for Gray. Now Gray has pitched exceptionally well, but they're playing with the same lineup. They're playing with the same guys, right?
Right.
So
Right.
there is something to that without question.
No doubt about it. I mean, even Andre Palante, who is limited, because he can't strike anybody out, but he's a bulldog, man. He's a fighter. He's a grinder. I admire that about him. I mean, he pretty much gets all he's got to give as far as what he does well. And he went through that one period this season where I was pretty sick of watching him, but he's kind of fought back. And, and this is a harsh thing to say, but when I look at Palante, I see a fighter, when limitations and all, I still see a fighting spirit. He's a guy that's going to compete his tail off. When I see Fetty, I see a guy that if something goes wrong early in a game, he shuts down. He just loses his confidence completely.
Speaking of articles,
and if John Mozeliak can get something that doesn't suck at the trade deadline for him, right? He should be the Major League Baseball Executive of the Year for just being able to get something for Eric Fetty. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, Rock. Go ahead, buddy.
No, you're all good. You're all good. I just need you to rewind about 48 hours to when you were putting together your recent piece, your Redwood review from the 16th that you titled, "Please Do Not Set Your Hair on Fire." And you laid out 5 reasons why the Cardinals will make the playoffs and 5 reasons why they won't. And I need to get into your mindset because I know all the cogs are clicking. You're putting together the article. Yeah. As you're writing it, which group of 5 did you feel more strongly about?
Well, let me answer it by this. Okay. I was trying to just say, well, people want to know, is there a way? So I was trying to explain, okay, there is a way. All right. This is what stuff you can hope for. Right. But when I went with the list of like why they won't, what I did was I took a little bit of the stuff I used in a video the day before, where I came up with 9 reasons why they won't make the playoffs. So I actually didn't even include all the reasons why they won't. And there are, I hate to say it, but there are a lot of reasons that make it a real long shot as far as them making the playoffs. I mean, there's a lot of reasons.
Well, yeah, that answers that question. All right, yeah. Fair enough. That's kind of what I expected. But and obviously, does that change, or how much does? Because after the trading deadline, we would assume that we know that we won't have to deal with the Fetty thing anymore. And so, how much does just that one switch, assuming no one else gets hurt, assuming everything stays the same, how much does that one switch change your expectations for them in the second half?
Well, they'll have a better chance to win games that come from that start, that spot in the rotation, because McGreevy would give them a better chance. I'm not saying he's Juan Marichal, but he would give him a better chance. I think Randy Carricker would give him a better chance than Eric Fetty. So anyway, but on the other hand, you have, for example, Matthew Liberatore, whom I love, but his first 10 starts were great. His last 8 starts were terrible. And more disturbing than that, his strikeout rate over the last 8 games is 15%. So he's kind of just like the other dudes, except for Gray. But they got to keep Liberatore in there because I think it's almost expected that a first-time, full-time starter in the big leagues is going to have some ups and downs, and he's going to have to make adjustments. But there's just so many other things that go into it. And, the bottom line is, like, this rotation has gone south. The bullpen's still really good. The offense is way too inconsistent. I think Ivan Herrera coming back will absolutely help that. But it's also a situation where they don't win at home anymore, or the way they were. There's only in the National League, there's only one team that's had more games this season where you score 1 or no runs. The Cardinals have also been, up until Herrera, they've been very, very fortunate on the injury front. And I've learned just watching baseball, if you're one of those teams that has been very lucky not to have a bunch of injuries, chances are you're going to get hit with injuries in the second half of the season. Because in the first half of the season, in terms of the value of the players that were injured, the Cardinals were the least impacted team by by injuries of any team in the majors. You know, some other things. You look at their run differential. It's since they're 19 and 22 in their last 41 games, and their run differential is like minus 21 or minus 22. That's a huge change from where they were. So all of the trends are sort of pointing down, unfortunately. And I think, you know, I think that's why they're up against it. And the other reason, you know, we know that the teams that are in the wild card race, the Mets, to a lesser extent, but the Brewers make sneaky good moves. But we know the Padres will be swinging. The Giants will be taking big swings. The Reds will do something stupid and take a big swing. All of those teams will be taking big swings at the deadline, and they will not care about throwing around a lot of money if it means acquiring a really good player who's making a lot of money. The Cardinals, I would be surprised. I just don't see, and even if they are buyers, I don't see anything so big that it would match the magnitude of moves being made by teams that they're trying to catch.
Bernie, what do you want to see then from, because I agree with you. And by the way, the Cardinals have a dozen games against the Brewers and the Cubs, 6 against each of those. Plus they have to play 3 against the Dodgers, 3 against the Yankees. So they'll have their hands full in trying to get to 91 wins or whatever it'll take to make the playoffs. So if they aren't going to make the playoffs, what do you want to see more of or less of? What do you want to see change down the stretch in the final 65 games?
Well, let me use this as a shameless promotion for the video that I just recorded before joining you, and I talked about all these different scenarios. But here's what it comes down to. My hope is that John Mozeliak he will be realistic, because even if they're still in the race technically, right before the deadline, it doesn't mean that they have a really good chance of getting into the playoffs, even if they're mathematically in it. But they've got a lot at stake here. I care much more about the Cardinals' future, 26, 27, and beyond. And the worst thing that can happen is if John Mozeliak gets caught up in some fantasy. It's like, well, remember 2006? Oh, hey, well, no one gave us a chance in 2011, and we barely even made the playoffs. Okay, and this goes to that Mozeliak made-up character that I just voiced. That goes to him, but it also goes to all the fans who might say, well, yeah, that's right. I don't know. Do you see the 2006 and 2011 versions of Albert Pujols, Yadier Molina, Adam Wainwright on this team? Do you see the 2006 and 2011 versions of Chris Carpenter on this team? A guy that was unbelievable in both of those postseasons. Do you see the 2006 and the 2006 Jim Edmonds or the 2006 version of Scott Rowland on this team? Well, Bernie, Arenado, I don't want to hear about Arenado. He doesn't hit anymore. Rowland in 2006 drove in 95 runs and slugged .518. That's not Nolan Arenado. And I could even name some others. The Cardinals don't have a superstar player. They don't have any Arenado will make the Hall of Fame, but he's here in his decline years. They don't have where you look at guys and say, oh man, there's like 3 or 4 guys in this team will be Cardinal Hall of Famers. Or you'll say like, 3 of these guys probably going to be in Cooperstown. Those Cardinals teams that won those World Series, even though they struggled during the regular season, they had firepower galore with guys that were either going to be in Cooperstown, should be in Cooperstown, but are already Cardinals Hall of Famers. So I don't want to hear, I do not want to hear comparisons to 2006 and 2011 because they are illogical, and basically you got to be sniffing glue to buy into that.
Well, and I think this is with all due respect to the current coaching staff, and I don't think that they would be offended by this.
No.
But who's the 2006, 2011 version of Dave Duncan on this staff?
Well, you're right. And damn it, Randy, I left that part out.
That part of it. And here's the other thing. The Mets won 97 games. They had more wins than any other team in the NL in 2006. The Padres were no great shakes. They won 88. The Phillies won 85 that year. The Dodgers won 88 also. the league wasn't great. And let me throw one other thing out there that was a thing in 1990 or in 2006 that isn't a thing in 2025. It's called Toradol. And that 2006 Cardinal team was just devastated physically down the stretch. And they didn't shy away from using painkillers. And from what I heard from players that played on that team, there was a line out the trainer's door the day before the playoffs started for Toradol. And all of a sudden, those guys are feeling no pain. They play San Diego, win a game, and then go on and win the World Series.
That's a great point. That's one of the reasons why when people talk about the steroid era and this should be disqualifying and all that stuff, whatever. I can't tell you how many major league players told me that, gosh, as long as they don't take my amphetamines away, my painkillers away, I don't need steroids, but I will not be able to play the way I would need to play for 162 games unless I have some help from the greenies and some other substances that doctors can prescribe. Players were terrified of losing the amphetamines.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, but I hear idiots say, well, that's not a performance enhancing drug. The hell it isn't, or the hell it wasn't. Players were crazy for that stuff. Anyway.
The Cardinals making a move today. Thomas Ajaysi being optioned down. They will remove Jordan. They will remove Jordan Walker from the IL. He was pushing the limit on days there. Bernie, not necessarily what you think it will be, because I think it's kind of up in the air, but or undecided. I don't even know if they know. What do you think the Cardinals' plan should be for Jordan Walker, and do you think it'll change, post deadline if things start maybe going south for the team record wise?
Like I'm gonna bank on something Ali Marmol has said, which is I'm gonna paraphrase. He said, you get to this point of the season, and the runway has been there for a lot of guys. But at some point, if you have a chance to win and get into the playoffs, it's not so much about the runway. It's about giving the playing time who players have shown they have earned it and they deserve it. Jordan Walker does not fit that description. So I think, to your point, Rock, he might have, they may put him in the lineup for, the Cardinals have 13 games before the All-Star break. They'll give him a chance to see if he can get something going. After that, I don't, especially if Nolan Gorman, now that Herrera's back, and if Nolan Gorman continues to hit the way he has, I'm sorry, where are the at-bats for Walker in that scenario? I don't see many, right? And then, the other thing I want to say, and this is related, I think, and I did say this in the video, if the Cardinals are out of the race and they go into the seller mode, right, the first thing I want to see is JJ Weatherholt up in St. Louis. And I've already had people say, well, what position is he going to play? I'm sorry. Do you see any Hall of Famers out there other than Arenado, who's not a Hall of Famer in terms of performance? I don't care where he plays. Get his bat in the lineup and get this career started. So they need to think in those terms too, as well. And just ride with guys. I would think maybe if they're out of the race, Walker would get more of a run, but at some point, it makes me nervous, because he's the type of guy that if they trade him, it'll come back to haunt them for a long time. There's a chance of that. But at some point, they're going to have to decide whether they can get him going or not. And let me just say this. I trust Chaim Bloom to make that decision more than I do the guys in the office right now.
Yeah. Hey, Bernie, in terms of Weatherholt, we both agree that it would have been beneficial for the Cardinals and for Jordan Walker to put him in the outfield before they did. They put him in the outfield the day they traded Harrison Bader. He played like 60 games in the outfield before they gave him an opportunity. If indeed they like Wynn at short, and I think they do, I know they do, and Donovan at second, wouldn't it make sense to give Weatherholt a few games, give him an outfield glove, and let him play left field at AAA for a few games?
Yeah. And when he was on KMOX with us before last weekend, we asked him about that. He said he'd be happy to try playing the outfield. He says, I'll do anything to help the team, and if it means, getting more good hitters in the lineup. He's got a great attitude about that. This guy's very confident. He's very charismatic. He believes in himself. He's unflappable, but he's also got a team first vibe that, you really appreciate. I mean, I always say, and people take it they just misinterpret it. When I look at JJ Weatherholt, I see, a young Bryce Harper. And by that, I'm not saying Weatherholt's going to have Harper's career. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about a guy, as soon as he's out there, you look at him and say, this dude's a player, man. And I don't care if he goes 1 for 11. His confidence will not be touched at all. He goes up to every at-bat thinking, oh, I got this guy. Come on, let's go. He's got that Harper vibe to him. And those guys are not all that easy to find. I'm really excited about it. Keith Law was on our former station yesterday and said, he said he's a superstar. He said the Cardinals finally have a guy again where one of the first things they need to do is just like sign him to a 9-10 year contract and just lock him in, because they haven't had a player like this for a long time.
Well, I hope that he becomes that guy. I am cautiously optimistic, but man, I think I have Todd Zeal PTSD.
Personality wise, he's not Todd Zeal.
Different. Okay. Just minor league player of the year guy, that was supposed to be the guy for the future. So that's good to know.
Well, Todd Zeal was overhyped because the Cardinals, didn't have any prospects coming down the line that were would sell tickets. They overhyped him. And Todd Zeal is a really good gentleman. He's a good guy, but there was no charisma. He never had like this aggressive attitude. Like, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. You try to get me out. It ain't going to happen. Todd Zeal was just real kind of closed off. He wasn't an intense player. He wasn't a highly competitive player. He was like a useful player and had a good career. But Weatherholt's whole personality, his whole package is much, much different, in my opinion.
Hey, Bernie, we both agree then that the Cardinals are probably not a playoff team. So give me a National League team that's not the Dodgers that you think is a good team to represent the National League in the World Series. Or are the Dodgers just so prohibitive you can't pick anybody else?
I assume the Dodgers are going to take care of business, whatever that may be, in terms of filling in where they believe they're weak at the trade deadline, and money is no object. They'll do whatever it takes. So that just gives them a huge advantage over just about every other team, except for maybe the Mets. And I know that the Phillies throw a lot of money around too, but the Phillies the Phillies have some major weaknesses. As much as I like them, they have a shaky bullpen. They do not have any offense at all coming out of left field. They don't even have much offense coming out of right field. They've got some pretty big holes, and they're vulnerable as they are constructed right now. They're kind of vulnerable, and they don't like their third baseman either. They would upgrade there if they could get a Suarez or something like that. I think the Mets are always going to be dangerous because there's a lot of talent there. And I also think they obviously have an owner who will do what it takes to get them over the finish line. And they have a really smart president of baseball operations in David Stearns. I think the Mets are a bit of an underachiever, but I think they're really, really dangerous. But I think it's the Dodgers to lose. We all know, though, you get to the division round. The Dodgers were what, 1 inning away from being eliminated by the Padres last year. Even for a great team like the Dodgers, you're still never bulletproof. There's always a way to get upset. So, but I think the Dodgers, because of their front office and because they can find players and they can buy players, they just have more of an advantage than any other team.
And you just mentioned the other team that I would put in there, and it might be the best rivalry going right now in the National League is the Dodgers and the Padres, because the Padres, they've got 3 starting pitchers. They've got a lineup. They've got a closer. Schulte can handle a bullpen. We know that.
Right.
That's a team in a short series that I could see getting to the Dodgers too.
And listen, I wasn't trying to be a jerk by not mentioning the Cubs, because it just occurred to me I didn't talk about the Cubs. I think the Cubs are really, really good. But, I just, the kid that's been a great closer for them, will he do that in the postseason? I expect Jed Hoyer is going to go get a starter, the best that he can find, but that's not like an invincible starting rotation. There's some vulnerability there. So I think I think the Cubs are really good, really, really good, but and they have a tremendous offense, but will they try to get someone? Matt Shaw's got a really good future as their third baseman, but that's not the guy you want in the playoffs playing third base. So they're going to go out and maybe get a third baseman. The Cubs have a really great chance here because they have the ability to go out and add impact players. And, they already have a lot of things working in their favor. If they can just add a couple of really essential pieces, I think they go next level in terms of competing, against a team like the Dodgers. So we'll see. We'll see. And, they're going to lose Kyle Tucker after this year. So
Yeah.
You would think that would make him even more desperate to do what it takes at the deadline. But their owners,
he's a mess.
Cubs fans are Cubs fans, I think, justifiably so, have more anger towards Ricketts than Cardinals fans have against DeWitt, because that thing could be unstoppable. They could be the Dodgers every single year, but he just draws the line on how much they're going to spend, and they have revenue coming out of the wazoo,
It's unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah. By the way, happy birthday to Ryan Helsley. If the Cardinals, if Mo would send out a group text to all the major league GMs, we mentioned the Dodgers, we mentioned the Phillies, we mentioned the Cubs. If there's a group text that goes out and says, hey guys, Ryan Helsley is available, I wonder what the reaction would be. He's not having the best year, but I have to believe the teams are still kind of focused on last year. I'll bet you could do pretty well if you put him up for auction, put Ryan Helsley up for auction.
No, I agree, because there's a hunger for relievers because teams never think they have enough, especially to once you get into the postseason. And all of the numbers on Helsley are going the wrong way, but he still throws. Here's the deal, but he still throws 99, and for some reason his fastball is really flat. He changed his arm angle, and without boring people, I'll just put it in the simplest terms. He changed his arm angle. Is that a sign of maybe he's hurting and not telling anybody? Or he feels he can pitch through it. It's not a big deal, but I don't know why his arm angle is different this year, but it's caused his fastball to be flat. It does not move. It's very much a straight pitch. Used to be a time you threw 99, hitters couldn't do much with it. Now their hitters have adapted to the new world, and it's like, oh, they don't care if you throw 99. And if you throw it and it comes in straight, they're like, oh boy, just throw me that fastball, Helsley. I'm ready. Boom. Seriously. I'll say one word, or depending on whether you believe this word is one word or two words. So I'll just give the word to you. Change up.
Yeah.
I could also throw another word in, curveball. If you go back and look at StatCast, it's easy to find. You look at Helsley's use of the curveball in the past. He threw, I'm not saying it was a frequent pitch for him, but he used it enough to keep hitters from sitting on his fastball. He doesn't throw it anymore. I have no idea why. It makes no sense to me. The second thing is, I had someone tell me, someone in the know who works for another team, said, look, the LA Dodgers, with that brilliant front office they have, and they have the greatest analytics department in sports, right? That, they ask David Freese about that. Ask Albert Pujols about that. Ask Tommy Edman about that. All these guys that go there and they're given information. They're like, wow, okay. And they instantaneously become better. So I had this one gentleman told me, he said, look, they're out there right now and they're studying everything, and no one's got more data than them. And what they're doing is just like, well, why doesn't this guy throw a changeup? He would be devastating if he had a changeup in his mix, because they're all sitting on his fastball. They go up there like knowing what to expect, especially when he's behind in the count, right? He's going to come in with the fastball. It's the fastball or the slider, but the fastball is what he goes to when he is behind in the count. And every hitter in the major leagues that plays the Cardinals knows it. That's why they're hitting .419 and slugging .580 against that pitch this season. The Dodgers are looking at this and say, well, what he needs to have a changeup. Let's get him in here and we'll get him throwing a changeup.
All right, we'll finish this on a little bit of a positive. Some numbers you put in one of your latest pieces on STL Sports Central that were absolutely just blew everyone away, and those were the numbers for Ivan Herrera. So you broke down all these insane numbers. I think for me, my favorite one has to be that just with runners in scoring position and 2 men out, Herrera is averaging 389 with a 611 slug. Which one of these video game numbers was your favorite, Bernie?
I was looking at the highest leverage, highest pressure situations this season. It isn't just runners in scoring position. What it means is like basically the game is on the line. And he's got a 414 average, a 515 on base percentage, a 793 slug with 3 homers, 2 doubles, and 16 RBIs in only 29 at bats. And when the pitchers who say, oh, I'm not giving him anything to hit, he takes walks because he's very disciplined. And then he scored a bunch of runs in part because they walk him rather than challenge him. And then the other thing, tie games this year, he's hitting 351 on base percentage, nearly 500 and a 541 slug. I mean, just on and on and on. He destroys lefties, just destroys them. What was the one I had about home runs too? He 4 of his 8 home runs gave the Cardinals the lead this year, and another tied the game.
Yeah.
And I said this in there. I said, I'm reading my own work here. Thanks for putting it on the screen.
Of course.
I wrote, I don't know about you, but all of this little dash of Pujols flashback stuff makes me smile. And I'm not saying he's Pujols. I'm saying that he has that same type of knack. When the pressure's on, that's exactly who you want up at the dish.
Absolutely, and hopefully he stays healthy for the entire second half, because the Cardinals offense is certainly going to need it for the full run. And thank you so much for joining us today, Bernie. If you guys want to check out that piece and all the other pieces with Bernie, of course, check it out at stlsportscentral.com.
Hey, Bernie, by the way,
yeah, man, sure.
This is one of my favorite ones ever. So Babe Ruth had a 690 career slugging percentage. In the history of baseball,
what the hell?
Okay, in the history of baseball since 1876, in the history of ball, there have been 71 other guys not named Babe Ruth that had a 690 slugging percentage for a season. He's got 10 of the top 50 slugging percentage seasons. His career slugging percentage is 689.7. 71 other seasons of that slugging percentage in the history of the game of guys not named Babe Ruth.
Oh,
I was looking for my Babe Ruth cap. I couldn't find it. That's why I was leaning over. So anyway,
it's outrageous.
No, unbelievable. You just wish there was even more like old black and white movie footage of him swinging the bat.
Yeah, he was amazing. But by the way, Barry had of those seasons, Barry had 4 of them.
Oh my God.
He had 4, 749, 799, 812. 863. So he had 4 seasons in his career of higher slugging percentages than Babe Ruth's career percentage.
Babe Ruth changed the game more than any player in the history of the game. Changed the game because the home run standard. I always loved his nickname because you look at it now. With all due respect, you laugh at it, but Frank Home Run Baker, like he would lead the league with like 10 or 13 home runs every year.
That was amazing.
And along came Babe, and all of a sudden it's like the home run record's 51. How do you go from 13 to 51? Right.
Right.
I can't handle that he had back-to-back years where he slugged 840.
Yeah.
He slugged 840. What the hell? That's mutant stuff.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Hey, Randy, you remember the late great Sam Muchnick, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, loved him. When I was in the 1-2-3 club and Stan was still alive, we became friends, and he would tell stories, and he would tell great stories because he knew everybody and saw everything in St. Louis, and he's greatest wrestling promoter of all time. He would tell stories, and then I would take Sam Muchnick to lunch like every other Friday too, and we would just talk. I'd soak it up. He told me some of the greatest stories about Babe Ruth. and one that I can't really fully share, but there was a famous brothel in St. Louis back in the day, very high class place, right? And I'm not being facetious. That's why it was so popular, because it was first class. And Babe Ruth would just check into the brothel and stay there for like 3 or 4 days, never leave. You know, her name was May Trainer, the madam, and she'd make sure she was loaded up on like T-bone steaks, maybe shrimp, and just keeps just running trays of steaks upstairs. And he would have the way Sam told it, Babe would have a cigar, and then after the cigar, then it's like, okay, back in action, if you know what I mean. Then he'd have another cigar, and then back in action, then another cigar, maybe taking a little extra 10 minutes. Then he's back in action again, just all night long.
Oh man,
I'm starting to see why St. Louis fell off.
Yeah, we're on some tough times now. That's how you can start a comeback if you're a city.
He would also, and I like this because I live pretty close to the Del Mar. You used to be a Del Mar train station where there's now the Metrolink. But people tell stories of like Babe Ruth, who just loved to drive golf balls. So he would stand out on the tracks with his golf clubs, and he would just drive like golf balls into the tunnel there, just Amazing. One after another. And occasionally he would hit an oncoming train,
Oh, wow.
So anyway,
that's great stuff. Bernie, have a great weekend. I always love having you on the show, man.
No, I always love being with you guys. You have a wonderful weekend. Take care.
You too. All right. Love you. See you later.
And again, guys, make sure you check